the small business, the risk taker, the American inventor, in trying to create a better world, a better economy, so they can do what they do well, and that is to come up with all kinds of great products and services and create good-paying jobs in our country that we so desperately need. You know, we talk a lot about what do we need to do to make this country better, and there's a whole kinds of things, and there's just ripe of all kinds of policy changes. And we talk about regulation, we talk about taxes, we talk about energy, we talk about healthcare, we talk about this class warfare that our government has waged on those job makers, those job creators in the United States. But despite all of that, it's so fascinating to see how we as a country stand up to foreign countries, and if our states were countries where they would stand up. And coming on the show right now has done a very fascinating report on this, going to give us some really beautiful color on how we're performing in a few of our states. We don't have time to go through all 50, but is Mark Perry. He's from the American Enterprise, and he's just done this incredible study. Mark, welcome to Made in America.
Yeah, hi, Neal. Yeah, happy to be on the show.
So very fascinating. I mean, how we are so much getting it wrong, and especially over this 7-8 years, and then even before that, this economic downturn that we've had to contend with. But yet, if you look at these countries around the world, you know, that are deeply into socialism and that have been so for many years, and to see where they are in the world and their productivity, it's glaring. You point out that California, if it's our largest economy, and if it were to be a country, it would be the 6th largest country in the world, and it's just slightly ahead of France. Just slightly ahead of France. In the size of our economy, the California economy, they employ just 19 million workers. France, to make the same amount of product and service in their GDP, employs 25 million workers. So just so much more efficient. And I think of California as being the most inefficient state in the union. I mean, it's a fascinating study. Mark, what can you tell us about it?
Yeah, well, that's interesting because California is generally ranked as the most anti-business state in the country with the highest taxes and highest regulations. But, you know, I do this every year when I get new data on state gross domestic product, and then I'm able to compare U.S. states to the size of other countries around the world. So I've been doing this about every year around this time for the last 4 or 5 years, and it always gets a lot of attention. I think people find it really interesting, but I think the main goal is to kind of impress upon people how big of an economic powerhouse the U.S. economy is, because when we talk about an economic output of $18 trillion, that's such a large number with so many zeros that people can't even get their mind around the number 18 trillion. So this is a way graphically to be able to show people, you know, just how big the U.S. economy is and how large our economic output is every year. And so I take all 50 states in the District of Columbia and then try to match them up as close as possible with a comparable country around the world that has a similar gross domestic product, or, you know, that would be the measure of the size of their economy. So as you said, California is our number one state by economic size, and that's equivalent to the output of the entire country of France. And then our second largest economy is Texas, and they have the same economic output as Brazil. And then this amazed me this year. Just the state of New York has the same size economy as all of Canada put together. And so then I, you know, just go through and mark each state in the U.S. with a comparable country in terms of comparable economic size. And then I also this year kind of did some of those comparisons looking at the number of workers. And so as you pointed out, yeah, I mean, France has 6 million more workers than we do to produce the same amount of output. So I'm also trying to point out that compared to other countries, we really have a world-class workforce in terms of our productivity. Brazil produced about the same size, or the same amount of output as Texas had the same amount of output as Brazil, and they have a workforce of 91 million people, and Texas only has 12 million. So when you look at those differences in workforce and then looking at the size of the economy, I think it just helps people really understand what an economic powerhouse we live in.